I'd been watching my money vanish for months. Rent, bills, groceries. Everything climbed higher while my pay stayed the same. 2 jobs, no sleep, constant noise in my head about what would happen when the next bill came. So I started looking for somewhere cheaper. Hundreds of listings, all garbage. Basements with mold, rooms the size of closets. Then one ad stopped me. Brand new apartment, low rent, quiet neighbors. Half the price of anything else in the city. I refreshed the page twice to make sure it wasn't a scam. It was real. I called the number. A man answered on the first ring. His voice was steady, too steady. "Yes, it's available," he said. "If you can come today, I'll show it to you." He didn't ask my name, didn't ask when I wanted to move in, just told me to arrive before sunset. The building stood at the end of a narrow street called Evergreen Heights. Glass walls, silver railings, perfect silence. It looked expensive. Too expensive for what the ad had promised. Inside smelled like paint and metal, the kind of new that doesn't feel lived in yet. The landlord waited in the lobby. Tall, grey coat, thin glasses. He smiled politely, like someone who had practiced in a mirror. "You're here for the apartment," he said, not a question. He led me upstairs without speaking. The hallways were spotless, lit too bright. I didn't see a single piece of dust or a single neighbor. When he opened the door, I actually laughed. It was perfect. Big windows, modern kitchen, clean air. The view showed the city glowing like a map of fireflies. "This place is incredible," I said. He nodded once, then asked, "Do you live alone?" "Yeah," I said, "just me." Another pause. "Do you sleep well at night?" I frowned. "What?" He didn't explain. He just stared for a moment and said, "The apartment is yours if you're sure you want it." We signed everything right there on the counter. He watched the pen move like it meant something more than a signature. When I finished, he reached into his coat and pulled out a small, folded note. The paper was yellowed, edges soft, like it had been handled too many times. "Read this carefully," he said. "These are the rules." "Follow them exactly." "Rules?" I asked. He just nodded and walked away. No handshake, no goodbye. I stood alone in the silent apartment holding that paper. It felt too light for how much it suddenly weighed on me. Maybe it was a list of building regulations, trash pickup times, whatever. I didn't open it. I slid it into my jacket pocket and looked around one last time. The walls were bright white, the air still, the silence almost comfortable. I'd move in tomorrow. Boxes, clothes, new start. For the first time in months, I felt hope instead of panic. As I walked back to the station, the building gleamed behind me in the setting sun. Glass and steel, cold and beautiful. A fresh start, exactly what I needed. I told myself the rules could wait until tomorrow. The next morning felt like a clean page. Cool air, bright sky, new start. I packed my boxes, grabbed coffee, and called a friend to help move. By 10, we were unloading in front of Evergreen Heights. The building looked different in daylight. Still perfect, but somehow empty. We carried everything up in 2 trips. The 5th floor was silent except for our footsteps. The air felt too clean, like it had been scrubbed of sound. My apartment, 5A, looked just as it had yesterday. Wide windows, sharp corners, a perfect view. It felt unreal. By evening, my friend was gone, and I was surrounded by boxes. The city outside glowed like distant stars. I sat on the floor, eating takeout, still not believing this place was mine. When I stood to clean up, something crinkled in my pocket. The note the landlord had given me. I unfolded it for the first time. 6 rules. The first one read, "Never look directly at apartment 3B after midnight." I smiled, weird but harmless, probably a joke. I tossed the paper on the counter and went to bed. Midnight came too quickly. The air felt heavier somehow, pressing against the walls. I tried to sleep, but the silence was too loud. Every creak of the floorboards made me sit up. My eyes kept drifting to the window. Apartment 3B was directly across from mine. Same layout, same size. At 11:59, I told myself not to look. At 12 o'clock I did. Just a glance, 1 second through the curtain. The hallway across the way was dark except for the low hum of fluorescent lights. The door of 3B was half open. I stared at it. Why would anyone leave their door open at midnight? Then something moved. A shape, tall, thin, wrong. It stepped closer to the light. Its arms were too long, joints bending in places they shouldn't. The skin on its face looked stretched, like someone had pulled it too tight. It tilted its head, and I realized it wasn't looking at the hallway. It was looking at me. Our eyes met. For one impossible second, I couldn't move. Then its head jerked, fast and sharp, like a puppet on a string. I dropped the curtain and stumbled backward, heart hammering. Silence. Then footsteps. Soft, slow, coming from the hallway outside my apartment. I held my breath. The sound stopped right at my door. 3 gentle knocks. 1, 2, 3. I didn't move, didn't breathe. The doorknob twitched once, then silence again. Seconds dragged into minutes. When I finally dared to look through the peephole, the hallway was empty. The lights flickered once and steadied. 3B's door was closed now. I didn't sleep. I sat on the couch until sunrise, lights on, heart still racing. The city outside looked normal, but the air inside felt different, thicker. When I finally stood, I noticed something on the floor. A faint mark by the door, smudged, grey, shaped like a handprint. It wasn't dust. It looked oily. I stared at it until my chest hurt. Then I wiped it away with a towel and threw the towel straight into the trash. The note lay on the counter where I'd left it. I picked it up again. The paper felt colder now. I read the first rule out loud. Never look directly at apartment 3B after midnight. I folded it carefully and slid it into a drawer. Not because I believed it, but because I didn't want to disrespect it. That night, I locked every door, pulled the curtains tight, and tried again to sleep. Every creak of the pipes made me flinch. Every hum of the lights made me check the clock. But I didn't look again, and whatever was in 3B didn't knock twice. The next day felt unreal. The city moved like always, cars, coffee, noise, but I couldn't focus on anything. Every time I blinked, I saw that stretched face from 3B. By the time I got home that evening, the sun had already gone down. The hallway lights buzzed faintly, washing everything in pale yellow. I passed 3B without looking. The door was closed, still, silent. Inside, I tried to act normal. Dinner, music, a little TV, anything to fill the silence, but it didn't help. The air in the apartment felt thick, alive somehow. Around midnight, I noticed the paper again, the folded rule sitting in the drawer. I hadn't looked at it since the night before. Something told me to read the next one. I unfolded it slowly. The ink had bled a little, like the words had been sweating. Rule 2. If you hear footsteps in the hallway past 2 a.m., lock your door and do not open it. I frowned, almost laughed, but deep down I felt something twist in my stomach. It was 1:53. I checked the locks, both bolted, windows closed, everything secure. At 2 o'clock the apartment felt heavier, like gravity itself thickened. The hum of the lights faded until the silence felt wrong. Then, the sound. Soft, slow, soft, slow, footsteps, somewhere down the hall. A rhythm of leather on tile moving closer. I held my breath. Every step echoed through the air vents, crawling closer with each second. Then it stopped. Right outside my door, I could see the faint shadow under the crack. Long, still. 3 knocks, gentle, measured. I didn't move, didn't breathe. Then, a voice. Jack. My heart stopped. It knew my name. Let me in, the voice said softly. You forgot something. It was a man's voice, calm, almost friendly, but there was something under it, like 2 voices speaking at once. I backed away slowly, my knees shaking. The handle rattled once, then again. I whispered, "Go away." The voice changed, lower, sharper. "Jack, open the door." Every instinct screamed at me to run, but there was nowhere to go. The walls felt closer, the air colder. The footsteps started again, slow drags back down the hallway, then silence. For a few seconds, all I could hear was my own heartbeat. Then something slid under the door. A small white piece of paper. I stared at it, afraid to touch it. Finally, I bent down and picked it up. Same handwriting, same uneven letters. Good, you listened. The rest of the night passed in fragments. Shadows moved where light should have been. The hum of the refrigerator turned into a whisper. Every noise sounded like a test. When sunlight finally cut through the blinds, I sat on the couch, shaking. The note lay on the coffee table beside the folded rules. I stared at both until I couldn't anymore. By morning, I decided to leave the apartment, just for a while. Get fresh air, pretend life was still normal. The hallway was quiet. The door of 3B stood exactly as before, but as I passed it, something in me hesitated. I looked down. The doorknob had scratches. Long, thin grooves like fingernails dragged across metal. Fresh ones. I turned away and walked faster. Every step down the stairwell felt watched. At the lobby, I stopped and looked up through the glass ceiling. From this angle, the building almost looked like it was leaning toward me. That night, I locked every door, every window. I slid a chair under the handle and left the lights on. I didn't read the rules again. I already knew them by heart. Midnight passed quietly, then 1. When the clock hit 2, I covered my ears, just in case. But this time, the hallway stayed silent. I told myself that was good news, that maybe the building only needed proof I could obey. Still, when I finally fell asleep near dawn, I dreamed of footsteps. Endless footsteps, walking in circles around my door, waiting for the next time I failed to listen. 3 nights passed without a sound. No footsteps, no whispers, just the same steady hum in the walls. I started to think it was over, that maybe following the rules actually worked. By Friday, I felt almost normal again. Work, traffic, people, everything looked smaller and safer in daylight. So when some co-workers invited me out that night, I said yes. It felt good to be surrounded by noise again. Laughter, glasses clinking, music shaking the walls. For a few hours, Evergreen Heights was just a bad dream. By the time I checked my phone, it was almost 1 a.m. The streets outside were empty, the air cold and wet. I decided to walk home. The building looked different at night, taller, darker, like it didn't belong to the same city. The lobby lights flickered as I stepped inside. I pressed the elevator button and waited. The doors opened with a soft chime. Inside smelled faintly like dust and metal. I stepped in, pressed 5, and leaned against the wall. The panel glowed a dull yellow. Then my elbow brushed something. 3. The button lit up red. My heart sank. Shit. I jabbed at 5 again. Nothing. The elevator was already moving, not up, but down. The floor numbers glowed. 5, 4, 3. The doors opened. The hallway beyond was pitch black. Every light dead. The air was thick, still. I didn't move. Then something shifted in the dark. A figure, tall, thin, crooked. It stepped closer, its limbs bent wrong, head tilted, skin pale like wax. It made no sound. My hand slammed the 2 button. The doors began to close. Then a long grey hand slid between them. The doors hit it and bounced back, soft, like pressing into clay. The arm reached further in, followed by the head. Its face was too long, too smooth, eyes black and empty. I screamed and hit every button at once. The elevator shuddered, then jerked downward. The doors slammed shut. For a second, I thought I was safe. Then came the sound, a thud from above. Something heavy landing on the roof of the elevator. The lights flickered. Metal groaned. Another thud. Closer. Then a slow scraping, like claws dragging across steel. It was moving, crawling toward the vent. I pressed myself into the corner, heart pounding so loud it hurt. The ceiling dented. Once, twice, then a voice, faint, right above me. Jack. I froze. How did it know my name? The ceiling bulged, a crack split down the center. Cold air hissed through it, the elevator stopped, total darkness. Then, movement. A thin arm slid through the crack, reaching down, fingers bending the wrong way. I dove forward, slammed my hand against the open door button. Nothing. Then, suddenly, light. The doors burst open on the second floor. I ran. Out of the elevator, down the hall, shoes slapping against tile. The walls vibrated behind me, metal twisting, cables snapping. Something was crawling out. I hit the emergency exit, stumbled into the stairwell, and ran until my legs gave out. The building moaned somewhere above me, long and low, like it was alive. I reached the lobby and fell against the front doors, gasping. Outside, silence. Cold rain, the city still turning. I pushed the doors open and ran into the street without looking back. I didn't return until sunrise. The building looked the same. No damage, no cracks. The elevator doors gleamed like polished mirrors. I rode up to the 5th floor, shaking. The ride was smooth, too smooth. When I reached my door, something waited on the doormat. A small white envelope. Inside, a single line in that same uneven handwriting. "You were lucky this time." And a key. Old brass, heavy, no tag. I stared at it for a long time. Then I set it on the counter next to the folded rules. I picked up the paper again. The ink on the 3rd line was darker now, traced over as if someone had rewritten it. Never press the 3rd floor button after midnight. I tore the paper in half, then stopped. Because just beneath the tear, faint but visible, was another line, half written, almost invisible. It said only 3 words. "If it follows." I folded the note and shoved it into a drawer. I didn't want to know the rest. That night, I locked every door and sat awake until morning. The key stayed on the counter, glinting faintly in the dark, like it was waiting for me to use it. Saturday felt calm, too calm. Sunlight poured through the windows, and for a few hours, Evergreen Heights looked almost normal again. I made coffee, cooked breakfast, even opened the blinds. I told myself the rules were just tricks, psychological games. By evening, I almost believed it. I watched a movie, left the lights on, and laughed out loud just to hear something human. When I finally went to bed, the city outside was quiet, still, peaceful, until the knocking started. 3 slow taps. I froze. The clock on my nightstand said 11:38 p.m. Another 3 knocks, then silence. I got up, heart racing, and walked to the door. Through the peephole, the hallway was empty. No shadows, no movement. Then, a voice. "Jack?" Soft, warm, familiar. "Jack, honey, it's me." My blood went cold. It was my mother's voice. "Mom?" I whispered. "Please," she said, "open the door. We came to see you. We." Another voice joined hers, my father's, low, calm. "Son, let us in. It's late. We just want to talk." My chest tightened. They lived 5 hours away. They couldn't be here. The knocking grew faster. "Jack, please. You're scaring us." I stepped back, shaking my head. "You're not real," I whispered. The voices stopped. Then, after a long pause, my mother spoke again, quieter now. "If we weren't real, how would we know about the music box you broke when you were 5? My heart nearly stopped. That memory was buried. I hadn't told anyone. The handle twitched, slowly, once. "Let us in, sweetheart," she said softly. "We forgive you." Something about the way she said it was wrong. Too smooth, too rehearsed. I backed away until I hit the wall. The apartment felt smaller, the air thicker. The handle turned again, harder this time. Then the sound changed. It wasn't my mother's voice anymore. It was deeper, colder, like something trying to imitate human speech. "Jack, open the door." The words scraped like metal across stone. Then another knock, heavy, shaking the frame. I screamed, "Go away!" Everything went silent, completely silent. Then the whisper came from right behind the door, so close I could hear it breathe. "Good." I stood there for a long time, trembling. When I finally looked through the peephole, the hallway was empty again, but the doormat outside my door was gone. I didn't sleep that night. I sat on the couch with the lights on until morning. When the first sunlight touched the window, I finally dared to open the door. The mat was still missing, but in its place lay a small white envelope. Inside a single note. "You obeyed. Keep going." The rest of the day passed in a haze. I kept replaying the voices in my head, every word, every breath, how they knew things only my parents could know. By afternoon, I couldn't take it anymore. I called my parents. They answered on the second ring. "Hey, sweetheart," my mum said. "Everything okay?" I couldn't speak at first. Her voice was the same, soft, kind, real. No echo, no distortion. "You didn't come here last night, did you?" I finally asked. A pause, then laughter. "What? Of course not. Why would we?" I almost laughed too, just to make it sound normal. We talked about nothing, weather, work, traffic, while my eyes never left the front door. When I hung up, I realized I was gripping the phone so tight my knuckles were white. That night, I didn't bother reading the rules again. I already knew what came next. The paper sat on the counter, folded neatly, as if waiting for me. I turned away from it. The lights flickered once, then steadied. I sat on the edge of the bed until the clock hit midnight. No knocks, no voices, no footsteps. For a few minutes, I let myself believe it was over. But deep inside, I knew better. The building wasn't finished testing me. Sunday morning felt lighter, almost peaceful. The city outside was awake, but Evergreen Heights was too quiet, like it was holding its breath. I made coffee, turned on the TV, tried to act normal, but my eyes kept drifting to the clock, because I remembered the fifth line on that list. On Sundays, the building is not safe between 4 and 5 p.m. No explanation, no reason, just the warning. I told myself I'd leave early, wait it out somewhere else, come back later. Simple. At 3:30, I put on my jacket and opened the door. The hallway was full of people. Neighbors I'd never seen before, quiet, pale, moving slowly toward the stairwell. No one spoke. No one made eye contact. It felt like an evacuation no one wanted to admit was happening. I locked my door and followed them. We reached the lobby just as the clock hit 3:59. Then everything stopped. Lights, sound, even the air. The silence was so heavy it felt solid, and then the power went out. The emergency lights flickered once, just enough to show movement inside the glass lobby doors. Something was there, tall, thin, sliding across the floor like smoke that had learned how to walk. Someone screamed. We ran out into the street. Outside, the sunlight looked pale, cold. We stood together in a loose crowd, pretending not to look back. At 4:07, the ground trembled, just once. And then came the sound, a low hum rolling through the air like thunder underwater. I turned toward the building despite myself. Every window was dark, but behind the glass, faint shapes moved, like shadows swimming through fog. The man next to me whispered, "Don't watch." So I didn't. The minutes dragged. 4:18, 4:26. The hum grew softer, slower, like the building was breathing out. At 4:44, the doors opened. No one touched them. They just opened, wide and waiting. A boy in a red jacket, maybe 6 years old, stepped forward. His mother screamed his name. He didn't stop. I grabbed his shoulder before he crossed the line where sunlight ended. His skin was cold, his eyes unfocused. He blinked once, then looked up at me like he'd just woken from a dream. I pulled him back. The lobby doors slammed shut. The sound echoed down the street. The hum stopped. Everything went still again. When I looked at the clock on my phone, it was 5 o'clock. Exactly. The building lights came back on, one by one, like nothing had happened. We went inside quietly. No one spoke. The air smelled like metal and dust. The floor near the elevator was wet, though it hadn't rained. Someone had left a small note on the lobby table. Black ink, uneven handwriting. "Welcome back." I didn't touch it. I just took the stairs. On the 5th floor, the hallway looked the same, but on my doormat, the one that had vanished days ago, lay a brass key. The same one I'd found after the elevator. Next to it, a folded note. Good job following the rules. Use the key when it's quiet. Don't use it when it's loud. I picked it up with shaking hands. The metal was ice cold. I didn't know what quiet meant anymore, not in this place. That night, I didn't turn off the lights. The building stayed silent, like it was resting after something violent. At 1:52 a.m., I heard a soft noise. Not footsteps, not whispers, just a vibration deep in the walls, the kind of sound you feel in your teeth. I stared at the key lying on the counter. It caught the light, gleaming faintly, almost pulsing. I wanted to throw it away, but some part of me couldn't. It felt important. It felt alive. The rule sheet sat beside it. The first 5 lines looked the same, but under them, faintly visible now, was the start of a 6th. Only 2 words. If it calls. I folded the page before I could read more. By morning, I'd made up my mind. I needed answers, so I called the landlord. The number still worked. He picked up on the 2nd ring. Evergreen Heights Management, he said, his voice calm, practiced. It's Jack, I said, from 5A. Of course, he said softly. I've been expecting you. Something inside me sank. I can't stay here. I'm done. I want to end the lease. A pause, then, that's not how it works. My throat tightened. What do you mean? You've done well, he said. Better than most. The building likes you, Jack. What are you talking about? I asked. You remind me of myself, he said, when I first moved in. The line went dead. I stared at the phone until the screen dimmed. The silence in the apartment pressed in like a living thing. I couldn't breathe. I packed a small bag, wallet, keys, phone, clothes, and ran. The elevator waited with its doors open, lights steady. I didn't take it. I ran down the stairs. The lobby was empty, the glass doors wide open. Outside, sunlight, freedom. I crossed the street and turned back. Evergreen Heights stood tall, silver and still, but in one of the top-floor windows, a figure was watching me. My figure. That night, I stayed in a hotel on the other side of the city. Old building, flickering lights, noisy pipes, but it felt safe, real. I told myself I'd go back in the morning, grab the rest of my things, sign the termination papers, be done. But when I woke up, there was a voicemail waiting on my phone. Unknown number. Hello, Jack, a calm voice said. This is Evergreen Heights Management. We've processed your renewal. Your lease has been extended for another year. Click. My hand started shaking. I dropped the phone. Then came the knock at my hotel door. 3 soft taps, slow, familiar. I didn't move. Under the door, an envelope slid through and landed on the carpet. Inside, one line written in that same shaky hand. Rule number 6, if you ever try to leave, the building will find you. That night, I didn't turn off the lights, didn't move, didn't breathe. At 2 a.m., I heard it again, that faint hum, not in the hotel walls, in the air around me. I went to the window. Across the skyline, hidden in the fog, a single building glowed faintly in the dark. Evergreen Heights. Its lobby light flickered once, then stayed on. I whispered to no one. I followed every rule. And somewhere in that endless hum, something whispered back. Good. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe for more. This is Midnight Jack, wishing you a safe night.